There's an interview with Robert Wandrey.
Well, you can try Wandrey.
Wandrey, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's a nice name, you know, like laundry.
Yes.
It's a clean name.
Thursday, the 27th of November, 2002, at the New York State Military Museum, Saratoga Springs, New York, approximately 10 a.m. The interviewer is Michael Russert. Could you give me your full name, your place of birth, and date of birth, please?
Yeah, Robert Edward Wandrey, and born in Chicago, Illinois, December the 13th, 1923.
Okay, what was your educational experience prior to entering service?
Prior to service, high school. Graduate of Lane Technical High School in Chicago.
Okay. Where were you, and what was your reaction when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Well, I was in high school, obviously, and maybe shocked a little bit, to use an expression to condense it all into one. When I heard,
home,
yes,
since it was a Sunday.
probably was, yes. And whether I heard it on the radio or newspaper or just by rumor, I don't really recall.
Okay. Did you enlist, or were you drafted?
I was drafted.
Okay. Could you tell us where you had your training and any specialized training you had and so on?
Well, when I was inducted, I left early in the morning from Chicago, from my home, sometime in February of '43, and went by streetcar, if you can imagine that, with other fellows that were drafted from the neighborhood. Went to downtown Chicago, and we were processed through one of the buildings that had done medical exams and that type of thing. Well, that was all behind me, and they just maneuvered us onto another vehicle or bus, or I don't know what it was really, but eventually ended up at one of the railroad stations and went up to Camp Grant, Illinois. And that too was a processing station. Probably stayed there maybe in the order of a week or so, and left there and went up to Camp McCoy in Wisconsin. So being in those cold camps obviously told you that they were preparing us for the Pacific or a warmer climate. I've heard that so often, that you train in the cold and you go to the Pacific or vice versa. But that was later, of course. Camp McCoy, I had my basic training, and after that, I think that we just remained at the camp more or less unassigned. And I guess for the records, I was classified as limited service because of vision in one eye was not up to par. But we trained pretty hard. I don't think that they withheld much of any calisthenics, or maybe less running and all than others had. But obviously, being unassigned, they didn't know quite what to do with this troop of people. I imagine there was a company-size group. So eventually, we were told that most of us had, pretty good scores in some of our testing. I believe we did some testing up there. And I had some good code aptitude, Morse code. And I don't know about the others. Didn't make any friends really then. But eventually we got to Fort Monmouth, which was Signal Corps headquarters in New Jersey. And the rumor was that we're either going to go to code school or radio school. And I keep saying rumor, you know, they always didn't tell us a whole lot. But we felt we were there for code school or radio school or something like that. And then the rumor came out that, okay, we also had pretty good high IQs, you know, and that we're going into the Army Star Training Program. Neither one was correct. So what happened, they took a good-sized troop of us, all with kind of same kind of classifications, and we just did guard duty, and we became a part of the base garrison. Military police duties, guard duty, that type of thing. We did that for quite a while, and eventually the reclassification came up, whether because they thought we could do something better or because of the climate of the war, you know, needing people. So during the interview for reclassification, I kind of, you know, read their minds in a way, and I kind of stressed a few things. Among those would be photography. Well, I did. I had done photography ever since I can remember. When my dad took kids to the park, why he had his camera, you know, and probably affected me a little bit. So I had taken pictures, and I had taken pictures in high school, and I learned to develop and process and print pictures. So that's what I stressed to the interviewer. And after a period of time, why I was reclassified and went from New Jersey, Fort Monmouth, to the Signal Corps Training Center, which was in Astoria, Long Island. And that is where I commenced training as a still photographer. Now, there are a lot of other details that I could get into, and I don't know how much you want to
How
hear.
long were you there, and how specific was your training?
Well,
You already
you
had
need-
that background, though, too.
yeah, but the training was specific. I think you need to know a little about the Signal Corps Photographic Center,
Okay.
and that might lay the groundwork for what we were doing there and what the Signal Corps was doing there, the Army was doing there. In fact, there is a website for the Army Pictorial Center, Signal Corps Photographic Center, on the computer now, which can give you probably better background than what I can tell you. And I'll give you that address later if you want. I think I have a printout also that might be of interest to you. Well, okay. I guess I was to become a still photographer versus a motion picture photographer for the Army. And the training was specifically titled Still Photography. I have a certificate for that. But the Signal Corps Photographic Center was a large organization on a studio-sized facility in Astoria, Long Island. And it was the heart of motion pictures prior to the big Hollywood explosion. And that's where many silent movies were made. Then with the onslaught of World War II, the Army bought it. They turned it into their facility. It had sound stages and studios, and a back lot, and everything it should have. And it still operates today. It's reverted back to the public domain, and it is run as a studio, motion picture studio, where a lot of current movies have been made. Coffin Studios, I think it's called. But anyway, the training of our class It involved camera technique, types of cameras that we could use, would be using, darkroom techniques, printing, developing, and assignments as like a news reporting type thing. We were using 4x5 speed graphics, big heavy camera. And then we would go out on assignments through an assignment office, an Army office, to various functions for photographing the activity, just perhaps as a news photographer would go out and bring the pictures back, process them, submit them to the instructors and all for grading. That went on probably, I think 16 weeks, but I'm not sure. And at the end of that period, we graduated, more or less. Received the certificate is what it amounted to. And then just waited a little while, and before you knew it, we were off to the Pacific.
How did you get from one coast to the other?
Well, that's the convenience of the military, of the Army. I'm sure it was by train. Troop train. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The training in Astoria, Long Island, was kind of interesting. They had a military barracks on the back lot, which accommodated probably 100 people, and enlisted men. Now, which ones were favored with that facility, I don't know. But I wasn't assigned to the barracks for my quarters, but myself and a lot of others were assigned to the hotel in New York City, just 2 or 3 blocks from Times Square. I don't know the name of the hotel, kind of like a second-class hotel, I guess. And the rooms were small, and they were all militarized with bunk beds, and that's it, bunk beds. Well, of course, the training is all at the Astoria, Long Island facility, so you know how you get there, don't you? From Manhattan? You take subways. So all 16 weeks of training, we got up in the morning and took the subway. The Army provided us with coupons, probably a nickel ticket or something like that. We commuted back and forth from the training facility in Astoria, Long Island, to Manhattan. So we really had some rough times of it. No, I look at my military service as being kind of interesting, stressful at times, but and funny, and privileged, certainly. So that's what we did. We were commuters for quite a while. On assignments, we usually had a military vehicle to take us around. Something like a military suburban would be.
Now, while you were there, did you ever photograph any celebrities or so on, or?
Well, no, I don't think so. Mm-hmm. I went to some types of conventions. I remember making photographs. I don't remember what it was, probably kind of like a union hall type of thing. I wouldn't call them celebrities. Mm-hmm. But you have to keep in mind that it wasn't so much for gathering information, but it was for training.
Yes.
And one of the things was involving this hall was how do you shoot a picture of a large assembly room, with people in it, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. with limited facilities. I had a flash on the camera, one bulb, to light that whole thing. So that was a challenge. And Went to some civic affairs. I think there was something about the Red Cross there, and much of it was human interest type things, and also practicing action shots. You know, people walking or running or moving. How do you shoot a group of 2 or 3 people where one is an officer presenting a medal to someone else? And some features of what you can do with the camera and what you can't do. Because well, I didn't know what we would end up with as far as equipment, but it was basically the 4x5 speed graphic. And we had a few Leicas. And
Now, when you went out to the West Coast, where did you go from there?
Oh, from New Jersey via railroad, troop train, we went actually to Seattle. And from Seattle on a troop ship to Florida. You can erase that part sometime or another. I'm thinking of warm climate, you know. Hawaii, Oahu. And in Oahu, we picked up more equipment. We picked up vehicles. And we just waited around a little while.
Now, did you travel as a unit?
Oh, okay, yes. When we left, we were a unit.
How many
The
were in your...
32, 35th Signal Photo Detachment.
how many were in your unit?
There were 4 enlisted men. 2 were motion picture people. 2 were still photographers, photographers. And there was 1 commanding officer who was a lieutenant, 2nd lieutenant. And we traveled as a unit. And in Hawaii, I guess we got to know each other a little better, because that's really the first time we had been consolidated. An interesting group of people, and we got very, very close. The lieutenant was from Hollywood. Okay, the lieutenant was, 2nd lieutenant was from Hollywood, and he'd been in the service quite a while through different phases of the photo system there. Because I just recently learned that he was there long enough to learn camera repair and motion picture work and animation, and you know, he went through the gamut. So he was our leader. We had 2 still people, myself and another fellow from Chicago his name was Harold Rosenthal, and not the Rosenthal that shot the picture on Iwo Jima.
Now, did you know him prior to service, or
knew none of these people? Knew none of these people. Hardly knew myself. Can explain that later, probably, or right now, because I felt I was quite young, and I had not been exposed to a lot of things that I had to take care of individually. In other words, you know, kind of a sheltered existence among a lot of other people, you know. So it was quite an experience to be in a situation like I was in. But I feel I sort of grew up, you know, came out a different person than I went in. And let's see, that's take care of 2 still people, myself and Rosie. And then the 2 motion picture guys. And one was from Missouri, I believe. He was an older man with family. And sometimes we wondered why he was in there. But his prior experience, he owned a studio. His name was Tom Korn. And then there was a Les Crocker. He was from New Jersey. He was another still man. And I have some information I want to show you on that. So, okay, we stayed in Oahu for a little while, picking up equipment, fooling around as people do when they get a new gadget. And oops, and eventually, did I break that microphone? Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah. Eventually, we got on a flight, a military flight, the whole team, and I think maybe another team or two. I can't remember exactly who. And went to Leyte in the Philippine Islands. And we got there right at the end of the action, and found out soon enough that it was kind of a staging area for troops that were going to be going to Okinawa. So there was some time there, and we weren't doing anything with any military assignments, so in my little photo collection here you'll find a lot of Philippine life, some people, scenes, things like that, you know, just like a tourist going around taking pictures. I have a few pictures of that. Next step, after, I guess, assembly of a lot of troops, you know, we could see ships assembling in the harbor and all. And we got on a ship one day. Just when, I don't know. I think we were on that ship probably several weeks en route to Okinawa. Excuse me. And it was life aboard a typical troop ship. Well, I imagine there's quite a few people who have already told you what troop ship life is like. I spent a lot of time on deck, even at night, just because I didn't like to go down in the hold and climb into one of those bunks, which could have been, you know, 6 or 7 high, plus people getting sick and all. It's much nicer to find a little hideaway, which I did. And it wasn't too long. We came up to Okinawa on April the 1st, which was April Fool's Day, of course, and it was also Easter in 1945. And early in the morning, we received a nice breakfast of steak and eggs, whatever that foretold. And many of the guys picked up ammunition, grenades, mostly the people from the headquarters company of the 96th Infantry Division. Now, I forgot to mention that they just didn't send our little 4-man unit over there. We were attached, and the detachment that we were in, the Signal Photo Detachment, was always attached to some other large group. And usually, well, for the most part, it was the 96th Infantry Division, which we stayed with through Okinawa. And I think it was the same division that we went to the Army of Occupation in Japan with. I guess early in the morning they started bombarding Okinawa. I understand that there are more battleships and more ships in general than at any other landing. Maybe, you know, as great or greater than D-Day in Europe. It's a big landing with no resistance, because historically, you find out that the Japanese were burrowed into hills. I'm going to need something, I guess.
Okay, you're talking about the invasion of Okinawa.
All right, landing started real early in the morning after this huge bombardment. I think there was a question that you had on your paper there on what impressed me and the whole thing. And I think the buildup of ships in that harbor and the invasion of Okinawa was very impressive, because there were just ships all over. I mean, of all kinds, battleships and...
Now, were you on the deck watching this?
Yep.
Did you take any photographs or?
No, not really. I had everything packed into a rubber knapsack, like. So I didn't take any photographs there. And I tried to get on an early landing ship, but they just kept pushing people off, and just so many landing craft that probably I didn't get off until mid-morning. And everything was pretty quiet, and no one complained about that at all. Well, as soon as we got on the beach, I stashed my pack, got what I needed, out of the bag, camera, film. And I might mention that with a 4x5 speed graphic, it uses cut film, not a roll. And you can go with a film pack of 12 pictures. Or you can go with a holder that holds 2 pieces of cut film, one on each side. So if you go with holders, you can't carry enough. It becomes a big load. It's not like a miniature camera where you can shoot a couple hundred pictures and carry them all in your pocket. You can't do it. With film pack, there's 12. That's a little better, if you can get the pack. We didn't always have packs. So, we got selective in what we would shoot, I think, more so because of the restrictions, on carrying film. And the movie guys had the same problems. They were using 35 millimeter motion picture cameras, handheld, and with rolls of 100 feet. And that would last about a minute and a half. Now, how much of that do you want to carry around? You're limited, so you work with what you have. But anyway, we commenced taking pictures, and
You were using black and white film or color?
black and white. As far as I know, I had never seen a piece of color film until the following year, I guess. So it's all black and white.
Okay.
Yep. And we took pictures of the first night there. We took some pictures of tanks moving up and the people on the beach moving in, and that sort of thing. And then the two of us stayed at a tank group for the night. And it was Rosenthal and myself, and I don't know where the rest of the guys were. So, including the commanding officer. So, we found them later, or they found us. And I also had found that my rubber knapsack that I stashed away had been opened, and a few things taken, Someone probably thought that was an enemy pack or something, I don't know. I think they took my light meter and I don't know what else. So I was guessing by gosh for exposure. Well, anyway, once our group gathered together, we had 2 jeeps and a weapons carrier, 3/4-ton weapons carrier assigned to us. And those came off the ship probably the next day or the day after. We picked those up and started moving in. And we were very fortunate, I think, that, we saw combat, but we saw it because we were free to go in where we wanted to go. And what was so fortunate about the whole thing is that we could come back, and more or less have a good night's rest, not dig a foxhole, being attached like to a headquarters company or something like that for the night. I guess the thing was to find good subjects to shoot. And I always thought, well, you just can't go around and shoot. Shoot, this thing is falling off again.
How long were you on Okinawa?
Through the end of the Okinawa battle.
Okay, you were there for the entire campaign then. Okay.
Stayed on a little longer. And just when we went to Japan, I'm not sure. Date-wise, I probably could find it somewhere or another. But as soon as the battle was over, why guys started counting points for
now I noticed
getting out.
you received a Bronze Star. Was this while you were on Okinawa?
Okinawa, yeah.
What was the citation?
Meritorious service. It was for, well, I guess exposing myself, enemy troops, on my own volition during 3 or 4 battles.
Now, did you carry any kind of weapon?
Yeah, we started with carbine and cursed those more or less because we didn't need it. And something to sling over your shoulder, and awkward. But those were replaced with 45 caliber automatic pistols. So it was pistol that we carried all the time.
Now you mentioned in your form here that you discovered some children.
Well, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, just could you tell about that?
Well, I think that was kind of one of the highlights of our experiences. So.
It's working against you today.
Yeah, I wanted to put some slack in that microphone so I wouldn't yank it off. What it needs is a little stronger clip right here. Okay, we'll do it again. Well, oops. I'm using up a lot of time that might be valuable.
It's okay.
Plenty of time. That's still not right. But anyway, we were out shooting pictures as we did every day, and we were up pretty close to the line where they were running supplies, guys carrying backpacks with mortar rounds and different ammunition and stuff up to the front, which couldn't have been very far. I don't really know how far it was, but we're on this path which went up, and the guys were carrying the loaded ammunition and stuff, backpacks, and the other guys were coming back up. So we were going down with the ammo carriers to see what's going on. And in Okinawa, they have tombs. The Okinawans had the island all peppered with tunnels and caves and everything like that, but they also had tombs in the shape of a lyre. To me, I always thought it was an omega sign, Greek omega, but they say it was a lyre. And those were cut in the side of a hill usually, and with masonry around it to protect it and all, in a little courtyard with a little wall, stone wall, maybe 10 by 12 completely. And that was the entrance to the tomb. And I guess the bones of the deceased were put in jars and then into the tomb. Well, we went past, well, we saw a couple of them anyway. I think I took some pictures of the tombs. And then as we went along, we found one that had a couple of little kids in there. And they were just, I think, 3 years old, something like that. Really tiny kids, And they were dirty, hadn't eaten probably, and they looked pretty sad. So we decided we ought to, find something that we could do with them rather than just let them sit in there, nobody giving them any attention. And it was like, well, we were the only three ones that could maybe do something. So Rosenthal, myself, each grabbed a kid and decided we'd just start hiking back, and someone said there was a Red Cross Jeep down there somewhere. We eventually got back to the Jeep and turned the kids over to the Red Cross. Well, in the meantime, and I cannot tell you where our second lieutenant came from, but suddenly he was there and he was taking pictures, motion pictures of us and the kids. And well, we did a good turn and then we took a picture of him feeding one of the kids, not thinking too much about it. And as soon as that was over, why, we just went on our way, taking pictures, consuming the rest of the thing with those pictures. Well, it turned out that it made the newspaper and it made the newsreels and everything else. So it's kind of a highlight, And it was really, I suppose, exciting to my folks because they were in a newsreel theater back in the 40s. They had, in Chicago, downtown Chicago, they had theaters that specialized just in newsreels. And they saw their son carrying this kid in the newsreel. So there are a few pictures that I took, and I cannot recall any picture I took where I received credit, Some of the pictures, and generally a lot of the pictures, went back to Hawaii for processing, and then they were released to newspapers and magazines, I guess, and you'd find that the credit was given to the Marine Corps. Bless them. They did fight hard, but they had a better organization that everybody recognized. So I've seen some that were properly credited, but a lot of them went to the Marines too. So there's one or two other pictures of mine that I've seen around, which I know are mine.
When did you land on Japan?
We went by ship, and we went, I know where we went, just what the date was, probably looking somewhere like early fall, September or October, something like that maybe. Went by ship and we landed at a place in the northernmost tip of the mainland called Aomori, A-O-R-M-O-R-I. And at that time, the unit, I think, already had lost, well, I know it lost two people, Proctor and Tom Korn. One was wounded by a sniper, Proctor was, and Korn was the older man that I mentioned earlier with the family and a business, and he just went kind of, out of his head, got everything all messed up, and had all kinds of psychological problems, and I'm sure he went back to the States too. So there was only two still men and the lieutenant. And then I think Rosenthal had enough points, and he disappeared pretty quick. And then right after that, the lieutenant did, and I kind of ended up in a headquarters company, taking photographs of the area, human interest and things that they put in their company newspaper, or divisional newspaper, which was the 81st Infantry Division then, that we were assigned with at the Army of Occupation. And we were quartered in some old Japanese barracks up on the tip of that island. And that's stayed there through the winter, and they had winters. Boy, up on the tip of the mainland, they had a lot of snow. It was really rough. And I think I accumulated enough points then that I went by myself with the couple of foot lockers full of equipment. You know, here everybody's leaving, and as they go, why, they're leaving all their equipment with me, and I didn't know what to do with it, if you really want to know. I had a couple of big movie cameras. I wish I would have kept some of it, just between us girls, but I didn't. So I took that all back to Tokyo and Yokohama, and eventually got sent back on a, within a couple of weeks, was sent back on another troop ship to, I think we landed in Los Angeles. And by train, back to Camp Grant again, and home.
Did you make use of the GI Bill?
Yes.
In what way?
Well, at the first thought of using it, I decided maybe I needed to get into photography. So in Chicago, they had a pretty well-established photographic school. And I went there for probably a couple of months, at least. And got a portfolio together. And couldn't find any kind of a job in photography, Unless I wanted to start on my own, which I didn't. Rather work for somebody. So that didn't work out too well. And I realized that also was a natural thing that a lot of other people did too that were in the photo units. Our lieutenant tried the same thing out in California, and it didn't work out. So I imagine a lot of us never got into photography for that reason. I don't know what the other guys did, but I went to that photo school and could not find the kind of work I wanted. So I worked as a machine repair man and an installer of photocopy equipment. About as close as I could get. It was a very interesting job. I'm mechanically inclined, and I like that kind of stuff anyway. And then as far as the rest of the GI Bill goes, well, I don't know how much I spent on the photo school, but what was left over, I went to Illinois Institute of Technology and eventually graduated as a mechanical engineer with a BS degree.
Did you ever use the 52-20 club? Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
Did you ever make use of that?
I'll say I think I did, but now you might refresh my memory on that. I think that was a program where you were reimbursed for was it 52 weeks?
Yes, $20 for 52 weeks.
Yeah. I think I did. I think I did make use of that for a while.
Curious.
Yep. I hadn't heard of that term for a long time.
Did you keep in contact with any of those that you served with? You had a small detachment.
Only Harold Rosenthal, who was in Chicago, and he formerly owned a camera store, and he reopened it when he got back. So I'd seen him several times. The other, and this is interesting, since everybody's got a computer, my daughter has one, and I've been using it. And in the past year, I've been trying to find people, and it's like finding hen's teeth, I'll tell you, in the field that I was in. But I did make contact at the Signal Corps Photographic Center, and whoever was running the website appreciated my contact, and I sent them some information on my early days at the site. I didn't find anybody that I knew. Then I knew that my lieutenant, the commanding officer, Lieutenant Richard Jones, I know he was from Hollywood. He is Chuck Jones' brother. You know who Chuck Jones is? Creator of Bugs Bunny.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Well, Chuck Jones died, I think, last year. And he had a website, and I said, well, with all this trying to find Lieutenant Jones, Richard Jones, with no success, I'm going to try Bugs Bunny's website and see if Bugs Bunny knows where he is. And lo and behold, I contacted a woman that said, Richard will be in contact with you almost immediately. In just a matter of a day or two, Richard Jones called me, well, not called me, he emailed me. So I am in contact with him, and he's older than I am. And we're having quite a bit of fun talking about the old days.
Okay.
But that's about the extent of it.
Okay. Could you tell us about this photograph? When was that taken? Where was it taken? Do you remember?
This is in the back lot of the studios in Astoria, Long Island, when I was there for training. This is posed, obviously. You can see the barracks back here.
Right.
And the big old 4x5 speed graphic they were training with. Part of the exercises, of course, were take pictures of each other, and I'll show you in the scrapbook I have. There are some other pictures there that we made of other people.
Okay, why don't you show us what you brought with you, and we'll tape them.
Well, okay, you want to do that? Well, let's see. I was going to say, you're not going to have any power, are you?
No.
Well, I've got enough stuff here, I think.
I wanted to. I know we
Yeah.
wanted to copy some of your things.
Well,
too, and-
I'll be happy to help as much as I can. You wanted souvenirs, didn't you? You still want souvenirs of any kind?
Sure.
Are you sure you do?
Yes, we do, sir.
All right, good. I'm a pack rat. Maybe where'd I put him? Hello. Oh, yeah. See what you can do with this. If you want it. I started putting these together, so my kids or someone will have. You can get that one out too.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't find any good kind of a bag to put those in. I have some nice bag, but... Well, there's a Japanese flag, which I found in a
Okay,
cave.
we have 10 minutes left on the...
Which I found in a cave.
Okay.
Oh, you want me to? All right. I had a lot of other stuff, but I gave some of it to the VFWs and lost some, but that was picked up in a cave at Okinawa.
And this was...
This is our shoulder patch, which we all wore, in contrast to the patches that were worn by correspondents, which were an arc.
yes.
And,
okay. And what is this?
This is a shoulder patch for the Pacific Theater of Operation.
Okay.
Okay? And I put these together so my folks would know a little bit about it. Lieutenant Jones looking at a toilet, a Japanese toilet. No, you guys, okay. The toilet is built right in the ground, flush. You can see it. You need some lighting because I never have eyes. They're all sunken in. Okay, I have my old draft card. You can copy whatever you want. There's a few
Okay.
things that I want to keep.
Yes,
but,
yes. Well,
you know,
no, I will...
when I was at one of the camps, Grant or wherever it was, went to church, of course, some email records down here. If anybody knows email, I don't know, but that's email. It was sent photographically. And there's a few other ones here. I told you I did guard duty. Don't waste your time on these.
Well, I'm just going to take the ones you did guard duty.
Yeah, you want a picture of the girl, I know. We were guarding her.
Guarding her, huh?
And you can tell I was in New York, yeah. And some more. Some orders. Here's the certificate, okay, of training.
And this is your unit?
That's our unit.
Okay, that's good.
And they're identified there. And I have another place where they're identified. And that's the unit. Training in New Jersey again in the wintertime. Nice, huh? Here's the two
Wait a minute,
still,
I think it's still recording.
still working? Okay. Here's the two still men, and here's a photograph of Lieutenant Jones feeding one of these little waifs that we found. And that's a newspaper clipping there, okay? Some photo passes. I look at these, I can't believe those. Oh, now what?
Who is that
Oh,
guy?
yeah, that's right. This must be a copy. That's the real one. And some more orders. Training assignment. Take pictures of your commanding officer, you know, because you're going to have to do that when you're in the field. Now this is training, you know, groups, guy with a movie camera. These are candids. This was on an assignment where they sent us to various places, you know, and that's a sailor at Grand Central just waiting, you know. Strictly all candids, you know, kind of human interest. You know, what are you going to do? For a training assignment, you have to do something.
Yes.
So I always, all right, now here's some more.
You know what I'd like to do,
Candids.
since we have a time constraint?
Sure.
Could I go back to these here, and I'd like to make some copies of,
Sure.
I wish we were told ahead of time this was going to happen today. I'd like
Take
to
your
take
time.
these out
I
and
have a
make
lot of,
copies of these.
okay.
Just copy in the library when the power comes back on. If you
And that
can.
is going to come on in 2 hours.
Mm.
It's off for 2 whole hours.
Uh,
Let me take this page. I want
No.
to copy both sides of
Hey.
this.
I can trust you and leave things like that. You know, I want to show you something really interesting. I told you I made contact with Lieutenant Jones, okay?
Okay, yes.
And he emailed me back, and he said, "Whatever happened to Les Crocker, the movie guy? Now he was shot by a sniper,
Uh-huh.
and he went back to New Jersey." And I said, "I don't know." And then about a week later, I was going on eBay. Do you know eBay?
Yes.
Okay. And you know what I found on eBay? Now this is a coincidence. Here's Les Crocker's camera
Oh my goodness.
and uniform and the
And there's
picture of the
photograph
team.
of your team.
And his family is selling this on eBay. It went for $600. You could have had this in your collection. Now, isn't that a coincidence? I just find Lieutenant Jones, and two weeks later I find
I'd
Crocker.
like to copy that too.
Yeah, you can copy that.
Now these are some scenes on Okinawa.
Correct. Yep. Right. Some of these weren't always printed too well. I ended up with a camera that didn't really function too well. This picture, there's a big one in here, I think, somewhere, has been around a lot.
Now that's one you took?
Yes, that's one I took. It's a group of troops that were dead tired and they just sort of collapsed in place. It's been in books,
Oh,
and it was in the newspaper. Now here's Rosenthal with one of the kids.
This is Rosenthal here. And that's your lieutenant on that side.
That's the lieutenant with
So-
the other kid. Yep, child, Okinawan child.
Did you ever find out? You probably never would have knew what happened to them.
Now
this is you.
this is the one that came off of a movie film. Yeah, that's me. You know, I mentioned guys carrying supplies and stuff down to the front. That's them right there. And I wrote my folks home and told them about what I did.
Okay.
Citation there. And whatnot.
Excuse me.
Some of the
Now,
guys.
is this the
Yeah,
flag, or?
that may be it, or it may be someone else's. I don't know. Mhm. Just some general pictures. Still Okinawa. These are kind of interesting. These are folders which they've dropped by aircraft. You can about figure out the message, just from the pictures. But with more or less telling people to surrender, And I think this is kind of a sequel. And there's one of the cameras I told you about. And
Now, this is Proctor, who's...
that's me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Crocker was.
So that's you with the camera.
35 millimeter IMO. I just break it down every so often and start it up and run it and not really accomplish anything with it.
I'm sorry.
Army occupation. Where are we? See, here's that same thing
Oh,
with
yes.
the guys exhausted. It's been around a lot, and there's only about 2 pictures I can identify that I did. All right, now this is all 81st Infantry Division in Omori in the occupation of Japan.
Now, you mentioned about the devastation that you saw in the cities.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's pretty typical, There's other places, and that was just from normal type bombing, But once again, you find more human interest here in Japan than you'll find anything else.
Now,
Of course, this is all.
how many? 5.
Yeah, this is all in Japan. Various scenes, some officers visiting, old people, school kids. And you can see what it was like up in the northern part of Japan in 1945, Quite primitive. So a lot has happened in 50-some years, hasn't it? Yeah.
Now, who are...
Well, that's me. Just, I went out in the bay. They dumped a lot of ammunition and arms and whatnot in the bay, and I went out with them and took some pictures of that. Never was very many subjects in the Army of Occupation that were really assignments, or anything I had to do. So, these are postcards, Japanese postcards. That's it, I think.
Well,
So,
thank you very much for
Here's this
your
one.
interview.
oh, you're very welcome. I'm glad to do it.
We've made the time.